Thank you so much for having me, and it's incredible to be part of this awesome and very meaningful, very important program here. So my name is Yoon. I'm teaching in the José State University, and also I'm artist, designer, and then researcher, and then hoping to do some little small action on this climate change actions. So here. So today I'd like to share some of the works I've done in the past 6-7 years. So here's some glimpse about my artwork. So I use the data as art materials. As you know, we are processing data every day, right now, even like every moment. Right now, I'm actually using data here too. So I think data tells a lot of hidden narratives and then patterns about yourself, family, ancestor, society, culture, nature, and environment, right? And then born and raised in South Korea, I was an immigrant, and then I moved to United States, and then I experienced many different things, especially like some issues and diversity, inequality, and the identity crisis, and many things. And then also I observed many changes in nature and environment, especially in California. So I want to kind of explore what's really going on in this world, and then and the many different things. So my research interests are visualizing data and then sonifying data that can understand our memories, identity, and body, and society, and culture, and environment. So, but today, especially I like to focus on the environment, and that's actually the theme of this program. So I was curious about what is really going on our nature and environment. And then as you can see, climate change is really happening. But what I can do as an artist and designer, especially also educator, I like to kind of examine what's really going on by observing the data, and then data is fact and information. So especially I use digital media and technology as tools, and then I like to use multidisciplinary data-driven artworks that can address these issues and then promote awareness about this many important issues. So my questions are, what can we learn by revealing hidden narratives in the data? How does our coming future look like? And then what should we predict? And possibly, is there any solution we can maybe do? Some of the things kind of as a starting point for my research. So as you can see, today actually there are so many great talks about what's really going on in the world. So as you can see, the California is getting drier and hotter, and that's actually the title of my talk today. It's really getting hotter and drier. And then there's some water issue. As you can see, the Lake Oroville, is the amount of the lake is really like shrink down and then really getting smaller. So I think it's really happening. You probably also observe it. And then this is a photo I've taken in 2020, and then when I was, when the pandemic hit. As you can see, we are kind of stuck at home. I actually traveled to Korea to meet my family, but Korea actually makes some 14-day quarantine as a requirement. And actually, I always try to, in my best, to actually not producing too much like plastic containers, but unfortunately, I actually cannot make it like 100%. So these are all the containers, plastic products. I use it for 14 days. It was, it's crazy, and then I think it's, I heard that also that through the pandemic, there are a lot of actually issues in plastic, pollution, and on and on. So all these things actually really trigger my research and then questions and the things I like to make. So these are the projects I'd like to introduce today in this talk. So the first project is called the California Drought Impact. That was the first one I start really like observing what's really going on. And then, I've been in California, I think this is 13 years. And then definitely there's a lot of actually, issues, especially the drought. So California has been experiencing the most severe drought in the past, I think 10 years. So drought has affected water changes, biological phenomenon, and the ecosystem, and then which really became a huge concern to me. And then I created this work. So this is the data visualization using the laser cutting and then the wood materials. And then there's interaction tool. You can actually observe what's really going on in the water system behind the drought. And then there's a kind of simulation. You can actually observe what really happened in the past and present and then future. So first, I created sculptures, and then because the wood is actually the really like the fundamental thing got impacted by the drought, obviously. So if there's no water, the trees and plants, flowers die, and the wood actually shows some kind of cracks, and that they change the colors. So I like to use that kind of metaphor, and then the wood is kind of naturally the art material for me. So I get the drought data from the 2011 to 2016, and then visualize it by accumulating, the drought severeness, level. So there's some kind of material, layers you can see. From left to right, you can see that, in 2011, only the southern region of the state, California, was impacted by drought. But throughout the time, from starting in 2014, 15, 16, the drought became more severe as the darkest layer, the top layer, is the very, very serious, region. So I think it's, I created until 2016 at the time, but I think probably it's going on and on, yeah. So this is a close-up look here. And then I use a projection mapping, and then to show the water system behind of it, because there's a previous talk about snow and then glacier, water issue. So definitely the rain, and the snow are the kind of key parts. If there's no enough, snow, it's definitely impact to the whole year. It's just all the animals, plants kind of got affected. So the water consumption, and then those how they actually kind of network each other, how they actually flow each other. Those are actually really important things. So these I use a small dots and the lines to visualize it, the water, the streams, and then you can kind of observe it as an animation, and then there's simulation you can check. Okay, here's a video, the work. And there's a sonification too. So here, what's going on is the people can actually use the either mouse or lean motion camera, and then kind of pause the animation. They can actually simulate it, what's really going on in this region, and then pour more water, and then kind of see how they actually relate to each other, and then kind of impact to the nearby region. So you can kind of simulate it, how the water can impact to the drought. So. Yeah, and then after that, it was the first project I used the drought and really, the environmental issue related thing. And after that, I learned that there's so many animals, plants actually impacted by drought, especially California sea lion. They're really in danger. They are dying because there's no enough food, obviously, because the sea level is rising. They actually eat little small, fishes or plankton, whatever, those shrimp, but they're not there anymore in the surface of the ocean. So there's no food, and then they're dying. So yeah, I got the data, and then I was in the Cal State Fullerton, and then I collaborate with the students in Fullerton. Engineer students and design students, and then we actually built the interactive system that actually shows the causes and effects of the California sea lion. So there are two circular elements. So if you actually tweak it, the left one, it actually impacts the right one. So there's a kind of thickness of the lines And then it's kind of, it's a really like a connected system in the multivariate layers. Some of the sketches here. So that the viewers, actually users, can observe how they actually related, for example, ocean, sea levels, the temperature, impact to the, how is actually those factors actually impact to the sea lions mortality. Yeah, so I think I always try to invite this issue in the classroom. I think the students definitely need to learn, and then also, especially the interdisciplinary project like this one is a very, very meaningful. So it was a very fun project, and then I work with the design students, engineering students, and then we actually had a chance to show this work in the Long Beach Pump, the really cool art event in 2017. It was a public art exhibition with a lot of actually cool projects. And then, my students and I exhibited the California drought project, and then this causes effects one. So there are so many people visited, and then, I had a chance to interact it and then kind of discuss about this topic. So I think it was also definitely a great learning process for the students. Yeah, the project actually continued. So I also not only just a visualization, but I actually use a sound as the tool to interpret the data. So this project is drought in California and South Korea. So I'm originally from South Korea, and then South Korea is also having a super severe drought. And then I want to kind of compare those two regions' drought and then see what's really going on, and then what is the difference and similarity between those two regions. So, and then especially here, I use the data and the sonifying it. So I want to kind of use it, the sound as a kind of message from the earth, basically. Like maybe I can kind of sound like a voice from the earth. Maybe they can maybe trigger more like some active, actions to the viewers. So here's a little glimpse about it. I'm gonna jump it to South Korea. Yeah, so what you just saw is the Google Earth-based images, and then those are actually the from the regions that actually undergone the severe drought, and then there's some other complex information as well, drought level, precipitation, rain. So I combine it and then create this the sound. So I exhibited this work as a part of my solo exhibition in Korea, and then as a 2-channel video installation, so that the visitor can actually listen to the sound and also check the visuals. And then so I think the sound definitely is a strong medium, but the sound actually travels, in the air. So it definitely leaves some memory, and then you can listen to it and then learn and feel it. But sometimes it kind of goes too fast. So that's why I actually created some sculpture forms. So this is a 3D printed drought data visualization. So I think the kind of sculpture form is actually good that for the viewers who want to take some time and then read it, the data, and then understand what's really going on. So this within the square dimension, the users can actually learn it. The various things, multivariate data, like hourly, the severe, like the precipitation, data, and the drought level, and then by years. So, yeah. And then, the black ones are the California, and the white-colored ones are the South Korea. So the viewers can compare what's really going on in the two regions. Some little detailed shot here. Yeah, so this is a project. I'm actually teaching graphic design courses in San Jose State. So also I was trained as a visual artist and graphic designer. So I always want to kind of deliver my work in the graphical form, visual form, obviously. So this is a project about the plastic pollution issue. So this is the photo I showed before. And then yeah, all the crazy like plastic containers, I use it during only 14 days. I was definitely, yeah, a little bit definitely surprised by the result. I didn't really intend it, but there are a lot of actually the containers I used. So yeah, I want to kind of create the advertising and promotional poster design about this pollution issue. So as you can see in the plastic, the one thing is the plastic product. It takes a lot of time to decompose. So this is the table that shows how long it actually take to decompose the product, the plastic product. So the longest one actually take longer than 600 years. So that's really long time, definitely. And then shorter ones is 2 years, but still 2 years is very long. So so what I actually did is I 3D scan the plastic product. I use it and then turn into the 3D forms. And then kind of there's a little interesting textures and then style you can achieve using 3D scanning. So there's a kind of little glitches and kind of missing parts, fragmented parts. But I think kind of look like kind of frozen, kind of time frozen things that maybe I can kind of visualize the severe decomposition time. So yeah, so I 3D scanned all the actually plastic products. I use it, and then yeah, turn into the poster design and the put together into the one the form. Yeah, and then arrange it based on their decomposition time, based on the material. So some actually definitely longer time, some actually take a little short time. So yeah, the message is within, but 14 days use, but it takes some, like if you actually accumulate all the years, it takes some, 10,000 years. So it was a poster design. Yeah, the last project I'd like to introduce is the most recent project. The future is red. That's the title. Yeah, and then I start with the this one. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and then 2020. Yeah, you probably heard about it or experienced it. There's a huge, like orangey sky happen. I think it was different, surreal. Yeah, and then I couldn't believe it. It's really what I was looking at. I feel really surreal, and then fooled, and then but it was real. It actually really happened because of the wildfires, and all the particles actually kind of cover the sky and cloud, and the air quality is like higher than 200. AQI score was about like 200-ish. So I think it definitely is happening. And then also my students also got directly impacted by the wildfire. The student's house was burned, and then so many actually things happen. So I want to learn what's really going on, and then pick the details, and then want to deliver kind of the exact information about the wildfire. So this is an interactive exhibit I created. So this work is just commissioned by the Arcos Art Center in Seoul, South Korea. So there was actually the exhibition about the climate change, environment issues, and then they want me to develop this art display, and the users actually can explore the both California wildfires and the South Korea, and then I use the 3D printing technology to visualize it so that the viewers can also take a look at the air quality and then the wildfire in the sculpture forms. Some of the detail shots. Yeah, so this is an exhibition. Yeah, I participated, and then the title of the exhibition was "Nothing Makes Itself." There are a lot of actually interesting projects related to climate change issues. Yeah, and then here's the video. So each dot represents each different wildfire. So the size of the circle represents how much the wildfire actually impacted the region, the acre of it burned, and the longer time or shorter time. And you can hover over each dot and then learn more details. And then there's actually machine learning components. So not only just what happened before, but there's actually some upcoming few years, and the predictive, result as a wildfire happen in the next few years. Yeah, and then the exhibition happened last year, but still, it's a pandemic. So I used the lean motion camera, which is contactless camera, so the users don't have to touch it, and then kind of place their hand and then interact with it. So I hope well, I think through my works, I don't want to, definitely, I'm not, providing solution for this climate change, but probably one thing I can do is kind of just to show what's really going on. And then I think that's actually learning what's going on is pretty much a really good first step. So, and especially not only just a simple graph or a traditional conventional graph or chart, something more intuitive, visually compelling, some interesting visuals and sound could be one way to, deliver this message and interpret the data. So yeah, I think that's what I'm doing. And then hopefully, maybe if you're an artist and designer, definitely, there are a lot of actual open source data about the environment issues. So it would be great if you can maybe grab it, interpret it on your own, and then kind of maybe visualize it, sonify it, and then there will be interesting narratives you can actually learn. I hope so, yeah. All right, thank you so much for listening to my talk. Thank you.